So looking at this first one, we were asked to find the measure of angle XUV. So point X is right there, U is right there, and V is right there. So the angle that we're looking for, oops, that was a really bad line, but it's going to be that angle right there. It's going to be the angle that kind of goes in between those 3 points. It's also just the missing angle from our circle. We know this full circle, all of the degrees in a circle have to add up from a central angle, have to add up to 360 degrees. So this whole circle is 360. We know that we already have 110 and 94 degrees. So what you can do is you can just take 360, subtract 110 on your calculators, and subtract 94. If you do both of those on your calculators, I think I saw the answer around was 156. Is that what we got? 156? Nodding? Yes. Good. And there was 110. And there was 94. And there, which is what we were looking for, has to complete the 360 degrees. And what's going to complete it is 150 degrees, 156 degrees. So moving on, number 2 on this bell work was a little bit different. And it was a little bit different because we had a diameter, edge to edge, running through the center. When we have a diameter, if there's no other angles on one side of a diameter, we know that that straight line is 180 degrees. It really splits our circle in half. So all of that is 180 degrees. That means what we have left on the other side of the diameter is 180 degrees. So what we can do to find angle USV, that angle right there, is we can take 180 degrees, and subtract 110. We do that, we get our answer is 70 degrees. That's the measure of our angle. We were able to do 180 because we knew that it was a diameter on the other side. If you did 360 minus 180 minus 110, you would have got the same exact answer. That's a great way to solve it as well. So now take out your notes packets and open them up to where we left off yesterday. Should be on page 7, example 4. So that right there, that M and then that WY, like Wyoming, with the line over top, that's not a measure of an angle like we saw in the bell work. Does anyone remember what we call that? Arc. Yes. And an arc is going to be on the outside of a circle. It's going to be along the edge. So the measure of this arc on circle V, so V is going to be the center point, we're going from point W to point Y. So what I highlighted right there, and I should have outlined the circle better on the edge, is the arc that we are looking for. Is that going to be a minor arc or a major arc? Minor. How do you know it's minor? Yes, it's less than 180. It is less than half of the circle. If it was exactly half, we would call it a semicircle, and the measure of our arc would be 180 degrees. If it was more than half, it would be more than 180. So we need to find the measure of this minor arc. The great thing is, we already have both angles that are going to be added together to give us this arc. Remember, the central angles of the arc, the measures that we see in here, those two measures are going to give us the arc. So we know that 162 is one of the numbers that we're going to be adding together. Or not 162, just 62. That other number, it kind of looks like half a square. Does anyone remember how many degrees that symbol shows us? 90 degrees. Yes, it is a right angle, and right angles are 90 degrees. So whenever you see a right angle like that, you could even write it in on the circle. That angle is 90 degrees. So now we see that our arc is going to be 90 degrees plus 62 degrees. If you used your calculators, you would see that 90 plus 62 is 152 degrees. So we said visually it was a minor arc because it was less than half the circle. Now we see numerically with the numbers that our number is less than 180, so it was definitely a minor arc. When you're finding the measure of the arc, one thing you can do is you can just add the central angles of angles within the arc. So now moving on down the page, or I guess on the next page, we're going to start here at the top of page 8. I want you to try this check problem by yourself. We're trying to find the measure of arc AD. It's going to be very similar to what you guys just did. The first thing I would do is I would find point A and point D on your circle and then show the arc between them. We also know it's a minor arc because we're only given 2 points. We would be given more than 2 points if it was a major arc. Since it's just arc AD, we know it's the minor. It's a short way around. What two numbers did you add together, Asia?
60, 39.
Exactly. Good. What'd you get?
153.
153. So what's the first number that we know to add? 63. And then the other angle that's inside of our arc is this right angle, which you guys told me was 90 degrees. So all you would do to have to solve this problem is you would have to add 90 plus 63. Give me a thumbs up when you found an answer to 90 plus 63. If you haven't, I'll give you another like 5 seconds. Cool. Was the answer you found 153? Yes? Yes? Seeing some nods? Good. Exactly. So now we're looking at this one. Question number 1 on page 8. Find the measure of the arc or central angle indicated. Assume that lines which appear to be diameters are actual diameters. So do we see any diameters on this circle? No. There are no straight lines. Excuse me. There are no straight lines through the center. There's a bunch of radii, a bunch of different radiuses, but there are no diameters. We are asked to find the measure of this thing HJ. Is that an arc or an angle? Arc. It is an arc. We show angles with this little half triangle. We show arcs with that line over the letters right there. That is an arc. Is it a minor arc or a major arc? Minor. It's a minor because we know that there's 2 letters. So it's going to be a minor arc. And we know those 2 letters are H and J. So an arc is on the edge of the circle. And we know it's minor, so it's not going to go the long way around the circle. It's going to go the short way. So we're going to go the short way from H to J. So what I outlined in red is going to be our arc. The measures of all the arcs on the circle, just like the measures of all the central angles, add up to 360. So here, we are given the measure of two central angles in one arc. And we need to find out the measure of this blue area. We know that 108 and 95 are going to account for this area right here. So we can add 108 plus 95 to get that whole yellow area. If we add 108 plus 95, we see that whole area is 203 degrees. We know that this green area is given to us by that 97 degrees. That measure of that arc from H to I. So we know that green area is 97 degrees. So we have all the areas covered other than the blue area, which is the areas, the degrees that we're trying to find. Remember, all degrees on the whole circle have to add up to 360. So if we add 203 plus 97 on our calculators and get 300, we know that 360 minus 300 has to give us this missing area. And that missing area is going to end up being the measure of that arc, almost. That missing area is going to be the measure from point I to point J, and it is 60 degrees. So now we know that that yellow area combined was 203 degrees. We knew that the green area is 97 degrees. We found out that the blue area is 60 degrees. There is two ways you could have found this answer. You could have done 360 minus the yellow to get H to J, or you could have just added together 97 plus 60. Both would have been good answers, and both would have given you the answer of 157 degrees. You just got to think of this as like sectors or angles of the circle. The only sector we didn't know was the blue area. We were trying to find the green area and the blue area added together. There's two ways we could have found it. We know the whole circle is 360 degrees. So 360 minus the two yellow areas would have given us 157. Or we could have gone the long way, added up these, figured out the blue area, and then the blue area plus the green area once again gives us that whole arc measure. So now we're moving on to number 2. And we need the measure of angle YZW. YZW is going to be that angle right here. And this is going to be harder because we only have 2 degrees right now. We have 55 and we have 75. But what else do we see on our circle that can help us out? Is there a straight line that runs through the center? There's actually 2. So we actually have 2 diameters. That's 1 and that's 2. Both of those red lines are diameters. The nice thing about diameters is we know on a diameter that the flip side is going to be 180 degrees. Also here, we have something called a cross section, and we're not going to worry about that. But if you can just look at this and see that the opposite angle is going to be 55 degrees, that's a great way to solve that. But here's another way. We know that half of the circle is equal to 180 degrees. So we know this whole yellow section is 180. Could someone get the door for me? Thank you. Appreciate you. We know this whole yellow area is equal to 180. So we can do 180 minus 75 minus 55 to get this angle right there. Anyone type that into your calculators? 50? I trust you. Yep, 180 minus 75 minus 55 equals 50. So now we know that that angle right there is 50 degrees. Now we look at our diameters and we're going to use the other one. We know that because of this diameter, this whole blue section is also going to be 180 degrees. We know two of the three angles within that half of that semicircle. So what we can do is 180 minus 75 minus 50, and that tells us this angle right there. That angle right there is going to end up being 150. Oh, that's off. Let's type it in again. 55 degrees. So like I said earlier, if you could just tell that these were opposite angles and they were going to equal each other, good job. But yeah, that angle is going to be 55 degrees. I know I've scribbled a lot, but this is the angle we're looking for. We now know that angle is going to be 55 plus 75. 55 plus 75 is going to give us 130 degrees. And that's our final answer. There are so many different ways that you can approach these circle questions. That was just one. Another way you could have approached it is saying, you know that this thing right here equals 50 degrees. I know this whole thing is 180. You could have just done 180 minus 50 to give you 130 for your second equation. There's a lot of different ways you could have solved this question. So finally, this is probably the easiest one out of these three questions. We're looking for the measure of arc GH. GH is going to be the minor arc right there that I outlined in green. The nice thing is we already have the angle measures for this section, this section, this section, and this section. What are all the sections of a circle added up going to equal? 180, that's half the circle. 360 is the full circle. So we know that if we added up the full circle, we'd get 360. So we know if we're just looking for GH, arc GH, we can do 360 minus all of these other angles. Minus 60, minus 75, minus 71, and minus 59. Try doing that on your calculators. You can just do it as one long subtraction problem. What'd you say, Juan? 95? Do you guys agree with Juan? Seeing some nods? Yes. 95. And that is going to be our final answer. The big thing is just knowing what a full circle is and a half circle. From there, you just kind of have to use your geometric sense to figure out the missing angle. The important thing to remember is whether it's a central angle or an arc length, those essentially mean the same thing to us. There's only 360 degrees in the circle, and they all count the same. So for the remainder of our time today, you guys are going to be expected to be working on your homework. It's homework number 1. It's going to be due on Tuesday, March 5th. So make sure we're bringing those out and we're making some progress. If you've kind of been keeping pace, the only ones you need to do today, if you've done 1 through 13 already, is number 14 through number 19. If you don't have 14 through 19 done, there is no reason for you to be on your phones. So make sure the phones are away and we have our homework out and is working on them. If you have any questions, let me know. Other than that, take advantage of the time to get this homework done. Miss Bryant's never failed someone who got all their homework in. If you need this credit, then you need to do your homework.